Thank you all for being here. You know, I should have stuck with my instinct. I think I told Nellie when we were organizing this program, and I think I might have said it to Jocelyn too, that I have no doubt I can get 200 people in this room to hear Dr. Johnson. And I should have stuck with my guns and with 200. We have about 180 of you here this afternoon, and we have a waiting list of about 10. And if I stuck with my guns, this room would have been packed with 200 of you. But 180 of you are very lucky to be with us, and I am so delighted that Asia Society Hong Kong can be the host of this incredible program. It's been a program that I personally have been looking forward to since we started organizing it. Okay, because we're going to be running short on time, start eating. I have a long speech, and I'm not going to cut this speech short because I have a lot to say. And since our chairman is not here to formally welcome you, so I will kind of be speaking for two. So start eating. Don't wait for until I'm done, because I have a lot of great stories to tell, but I wanted to use this opportunity. It's rare that I have this opportunity of these incredible people, men and women, but a lot of Wellesley alums here, as well as Wellesley parents. And I am just so delighted that Asia Society Hong Kong can be hosting this. And as I mentioned, we started planning this program, actually, believe it or not, in August of last year. And it was surely around the time, I think our first collaboration with the Wellesley program was last August, when we hosted a program I moderated with Edie Hu, and co-moderated with Judy G. Both are here today. Wave. This is the first time I had a chance, August of last year, Edie agreed to do a program on her incredible open water swimming, which she started in Hong Kong. I've known Edie since the 90s, and her incredible story of open water swimming around Hong Kong and throughout the world. And I thought, wow, let's do a program around that. And Edie readily agreed, and Judy agreed to also both of them, our Wellesley alum, agreed to moderate. So the program was really successful, and I know I met many of you that night at Miller Theater. And I think Edie's, swimming, actually, I think, play water polo at Wellesley, I learned. And then this is the first time I'm seeing Edie since her completion of the Cook Strait swim on February 27th, which is her fourth of the Ocean 7 series. So congratulations, Edie. So glad to have you back. And so Edie and Judy's program started this program, actually, and it was shortly after that I got a call from Nellie, and Nellie thought, Dr. Johnson's coming to visit in the spring. Would Asia Society be interested? And what do you think my answer was? Because I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Johnson briefly when she visited 2018. I thought it was 2019, but it was actually 2018. I think Lulu might have been with us. I know Henrietta was with us. I think it was also around the time the Global Trustee meeting, as I recall. That year, 2018. So we're really delighted that we have the honor of welcoming back Dr. Johnson this March. And originally, this date was picked around Ronnie's schedule because Ronnie wanted to personally be here to host Dr. Johnson. But ever since he retired last April, we don't see him as often, which is not a bad thing for me, actually. And I think Adriel probably said the same thing. Because, Ronnie has a way, we love him as a way of traveling and just not staying in one place. But we picked the date because of his schedule, and then his schedule changed. So he can't be here, but he sends his regrets, and I know he wants to be here, but I think he has a wedding that he was attending. So we are glad that he's not here, because that means I can say more things. But anyway, we're really delighted that we have this opportunity, and my heartfelt gratitude to Nellie for your leadership in making today's incredible program happen, and really the incredible team at Wellesley Club Hong Kong, Jocelyn, Lillian, Charlotte, Acadia, Liz and Laura from the university. Thank you guys for making this program happen. And I want to thank my incredible team, Mia and Holly. We never get the luxury of organizing a program for this length of time. In fact, our program, sometime because of the visitors coming to Hong Kong, we generally, sometime our turnaround time is 2 weeks. And today, we're going to break a record. I just saw an email as I was leaving the office around noon. A week from today, we will be doing a PC dinner, President's Circle. Those of you who are President's Circles, you know what PC is. We just confirmed Professor Jeffrey Sachs for our President's Circle dinner next Friday night. So Holly, sorry, we have to turn around this dinner, and we will make it happen because Professor Sachs here is here for Earth Conference, Earth Summit. So we are not saying no to Professor Sachs. And so those of you, I know next week is going to be an incredible busy week, and it's already started. But if you can join us as president, and that means you have to become President's Circle members. And now I can do a plug for our membership, because our membership team just reminded me we can't be here without our members. We have 3,000 members now, and we need more because, as you know, this last couple of years, there's been a lot of transitions. A lot of members have left. We have new members, but not enough. So if you would like to consider joining as a member, for today, the deadline is till April 30th. We'll extend 3 months extra. So those of you who are already sitting on the fence, you want to join a member. Why? I'll give you several reasons, not only because of programs like Professor Sachs' dinner. You know this is a crazy time because of the art month, art week. If you are a member, you are invited to our opening. So this week, today and next week, we have not 1, not 2, 3 exhibitions openings. We're not M+, but 3 exhibition openings is a record. And the first one will be this afternoon I think it'll be this afternoon at 4 o'clock. We are doing the outdoor exhibition, Master Li Guangyu. Master Li is from Taiwan, and his sculpture you will see around the site. So that exhibition opens today. Tuesday, we have a wonderful exhibition opening that I'm really, really excited about. We have 2 young curators from London, Isabel Getty and Stephanie Cavalcanti. They're going to introduce us to a group of Chinese emerging artists studied in UK. The exhibition is called New Horizons, Emerging Voices in Chinese Art and Sculpture. It's a pop-up exhibition, only around for 2 weeks, and you don't want to miss that opening. And we're really, really delighted that we will have that. And that exhibition opening. And the third exhibition opening is on Tuesday. Objects of a Play, Ho Mo Jun Centennial Retrospective. It's the 5th installment of our Contemporary Chinese Female Artist series. It's opening on Tuesday, the opening ceremony, and open to the public on the 26th. So you can see, as a member, you're invited to all of these art happenings. And one of the things we found out, we grew up, Asia Society opened in 2012, this center, this space. Art Basel opened around the same time. And as a member of Asia Society, especially our higher tier members, they love giving us VIP tickets. So we have given out all the VIP tickets already. Some people have signed up so they can benefit from that. And so that means Asia Society members have a lot of privileges. There are discounts around, so you want to join. Okay. I think I've said a lot already, but I'm right now want to kind of really add my heartfelt thanks to today's this really incredible panel. Needless to say, I'm really in awe of our moderator, good friend, Kristie Lu Stout. Thank you, Kristie, for agreeing to do this. And Kristie is no stranger to all of us, a longtime Hong Kong resident and also anchor and correspondent at CNN. We have Stephanie Lo, Vice Chair and Executive Director of Shui On Group, and we had Jinqing Cai, President of Kering Greater China. It was great to see Ms. Cai and her daughter in Switzerland last summer when we were for one of the festivals. And of course, Lulu Wang, Vice Chair of Asia Society and founder and CEO of Tupelo Capital. I have to give a special thanks to Lulu because, I've been getting a lot of compliment about our programming, but I have to say everything that I know about organizing a great program and great conference, I learned from Lulu. In the spring of 2007, when I was executive director at Committee of 100. I had the honor of co-organizing, well, Lulu was co-chair for the C100 conference that year in New York. And as the executive director, I worked with Lulu very closely that spring, well, that year. I called it the Conference of the Henrys. I don't know if Lulu remember. You invited Hank Paulson, Henry Kravitz, and I think Henry Kissinger was in there too, as part of our speaker. And on top of that, Mayor Michael Bloomberg was our keynote speaker that year. And from that incredible experience, I learned from you how to really organize a wonderful get-together and conference, places to learn. And also that was our most successful fundraiser to date. I think we broke the record that year. And it helped that it was spring of 2007 and not the following year. So I really want to thank Lulu for your leadership as vice chair of Asia Society Global, and we're really grateful. And we also have another Asia Society Global trustee here, a new trustee, Vivian Tam. Vivian is our new Asia Society Global trustee, and I also want to introduce Asia Society Hong Kong's new trustee. This is her first event, Pia Miller-Getty. Thank you, Pia, for coming, and thank you, Vivian. Both of you graced us with your attendance. I'm sure you agree, between August last year and now, a lot has happened around the world. And it's no coincidence that this program is scheduled now for March, which is a time to celebrate women history and women. And this month is not about exclusion. Not many of us wouldn't be here without the support of the men in our lives. And it just reminds me, it was 3 years ago this month, I lost my father, and I miss him every day. But it's about celebrating successes and achievement of women with the support of all of our family and friends, mentors and teachers. So I'm really delighted that today we have the honor of holding this program. So I'm going to come back in about 1:15 to formally introduce Dr. Johnson to you and get the program started. But I want to thank you all for your support. It's been 13 years since I've been, and it's been a year. I think I had a 1-year anniversary as president of Asia Society Hong Kong, and I am so grateful. I have told a lot of people this is really the best job, and it's one of the best jobs in the world, and I'm so grateful for all your support. And I look forward to seeing you next week and at all the events around town. But thank you, and look forward to the program later on in the afternoon. Thank you. Before I start introducing formally Dr. Johnson, but I just want to acknowledge some of our table supporter. I want to thank Nellie again, Virginia E. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you so much for your support. I love you, Virginia. And White and Case, thank you. Thank you all without your support, we can't make this lunch happen, so thank you. It is really my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Paula Johnson, who is the 14th president of Wellesley College. And she is a pioneer. I just found out when we were preparing this that she's also a fellow IWF member, IWF Massachusetts. So those of you who are IWF, we're going to try to get a photo with our fellow IWF, Dr. Johnson, at her suggestion before she leaves. So come up after the talk. She's a pioneer, and she has some really, decades of experience in the field of academic medicine, public health, and higher ed. And she, since joining Wellesley in 2016, she really has moved the college to the forefront of STEM education for women and has led creation of the school's strategic plan, which places exclusive excellence at the heart of the Wellesley experience. We know, okay, I'm going to fast forward. She has served as the Grace A. Young Family Professor of Medicine in Women's Health at Harvard Medical School and Professor of Epidemiology at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. In addition, she founded the Connors Center for Women's Health and Gender Biology at Brigham and Women's Hospital, President Johnson is a member of the National Academy of Medicine, which recently appointed her to its Commission on Investment Imperatives for Healthy Nation and of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. She has received a lot of honors, honorary degrees, and numerous awards for her contribution in science, medicine, and public health. Her recent honors include the Harvard T.H. Chen School of Public Health Alumni Award of Merit, the Harvard Medal in recognition for her extraordinary service to the university, and also an honorary Doctor of Law degree from Princeton University. She was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and she has attended Harvard University, where she earned her bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degree. No wonder Gerald loves you. So we were talking about Ronnie's brother Gerald, and I know your Harvard ties and also your ties with the T.H. Chen School of Public Health makes you a wonderful member of the Chen family. So with that, I'm really delighted to invite Dr. Paula Johnson to the stage to give us a presentation.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you for that really wonderful and generous introduction. And it's so wonderful to be here to reconnect with so many members of so many people, so many of our alumni from Wellesley, and also to meet the members of the Asia Society in Hong Kong. When I was here in 2018, I got to meet Alice and had a wonderful meeting with Ronnie, but really didn't get to experience the full glory of the Asia Society. But really with Lulu Wang and Henrietta Fore as our distinguished alumni, the reputation and the impact of the Asia Society is so clear. So it really is my honor to be here today. At Wellesley College, we are celebrating our 150th year of educating women to make a difference in the world. So in 1875, when we opened our doors to students, the United States was just 10 years past a terrible civil war fought over slavery. This was not yet a society that saw people of color or women as equal in their humanity and dignity. And frankly, we still struggle towards this ideal. In 1875, powerful men in the United States could say without shame that women didn't have the intellectual capacity for higher learning, or that women's roles in society didn't require them to be so highly equipped, or that allowing women to learn alongside men would be a dangerous distraction for their male peers. So Wellesley's founders, Henry and Pauline Durant, on the other hand, saw higher education for women not just as a matter of justice for individual women, but also as a force for justice, one of the best ways to achieve social transformation and create a better world. So history has proven them right. There's ample evidence now that investing in the education of girls and women pays enormous dividends for the economy and society. And over the past 150 years, Wellesley women have contributed to groundbreaking advances in politics and medicine, in science and business, in education, in the arts, and beyond. So we're going to soon have a panel with three really amazing Wellesley alumni who are inspiring leaders in business and philanthropy. I think wonderful examples of the impact of the education. But we don't live in a perfect world. And around the globe, there's been backsliding on gender equity. 30 years ago, the UN's Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing, during that conference, we celebrated the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. It was a blueprint for advancing women's rights. It was unanimously adopted by 189 countries. Today, while there's absolutely been progress since the Fourth World Conference in 1995, the World Economic Forum nonetheless estimates that we still have 134 years to go before we reach gender parity at the rate that we're going. So we still see women lagging behind men in their political power, earnings, health spans, and opportunities. There are troubling suggestions that things may get a bit worse before they get better. A global survey sponsored by King's College of London has found that 57% of Gen Z men, the oldest of whom are now 28, believe that efforts for women's equality have gone too far and that men are now being discriminated against. The fact that younger men, more than older, are expressing this resentment is truly worrisome for the future. Of course, there are realms in which women are outpacing men, including educational attainment. In the United States, 47% of women aged 25 to 34 have a bachelor's degree. Just 37% of men do. And I just admit that is a problem, right? We do want to see parity on both sides. Since 2019, women have made up more than half of the college-educated labor force in the United States. Here in Hong Kong, women outnumber men in programs funded by the University Grants Committee. But as we know, educational attainment does not always translate into leadership. Women still run just 10% of Fortune 500 companies, and in my field of academic medicine, women are 52% of medical school graduates now, but just 30% of full professors. And those are the people who hold the power in academic medicine. We remain way below parity in our political leadership in the United States and worldwide, where just 1 in 4 parliament seats is held by a woman. Without women in leadership, the solutions to important problems inevitably will be out of balance. So as I see it, we need to do 3 things broadly. 1 is deliberately educate women to be leaders. 2nd, use evidence to help them navigate their careers. And 3rd, push back on structures that disadvantage women. So on the education front, Wellesley College has an advantage as the world's preeminent women's college. As a former U.S. Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, class of 1959, puts it at Wellesley, and I quote her, "All of the leadership roles are women's roles. The president of the student body, the editor of the newspaper, you get used to leading." We offer outstanding academics, of course, but we also understand that what happens outside the classroom is absolutely essential to developing women ready to lead. Wellesley's remarkable second president, Alice Freeman Palmer, argued that one of the most important reasons for women to go to college at a time when it was rare was to discover the wealth that lies in differences. So Wellesley has been unusually inclusive throughout its history, welcoming women of all races, all socioeconomic levels, and from many different nations, and we've had a very special relationship with Asia, in particular China, and allowing its students to discover the wealth that lies in differences. Today, we have an increasing number of women from Asia on our campus, a total of about 11% today of our student body. We also encourage Wellesley students to study in Asia during college, with growing numbers in Hong Kong, South Korea, and Singapore. Frankly, in a world with increasing geopolitical tensions, it is so important that women strive to understand each other and find common ground across borders. We want our students to learn how to communicate across all fault lines of culture, nationality, race, gender, politics, and economics. However, after the isolation of the pandemic, it's clear that some fundamental concepts such as connection, the gracious resolution of conflicts, and a sense of community really do need to be learned. Wellesley is extremely unusual in taking a curricular approach to residential college life with many of our formal programs and informal events. And what we call informally as the residential curriculum has 3 fundamental learning goals. The first, self-awareness. The second, a sense of belonging. And third, inclusive excellence, which is the understanding that without taking into account different experiences and perspectives, there is no excellence. We also encourage civil discourse in our classrooms by stressing the importance of getting to know the person behind the position, even positions that students may disagree with, because there may be more substance than they see at first glance. These are skills that are valuable and lifelong. They're prime for women they are essential as we think about the skills and talents that women will need in the future. We believe that the power to persuade may be one of the most important forms of power as we move forward in our world. It's also important to understand where women are experiencing the challenges that may prevent them from reaching their full potential. Quaylin Ellegrund of the Wellesley class of 1999, who's director of the McKinsey Global Institute, McKinsey's research arm, and 2 of her colleagues have just published a book considering how early career women can step over what they call the broken rung. The fact that as a group, they lag men in their first promotion to manager, and then they never fully catch up to men in either authority or earnings. Their analysis suggests that only half of earnings in a career are associated with education and skills that someone brings to that first job. And this is the place where women are excelling with that education and the skills. But the other half is determined by what they call experience capital. And experience capital grows more valuable the longer one is in one's career. So women are less likely to gain the experience capital that leads to promotions. This means not doing their current jobs brilliantly, that they're not doing their current jobs brilliantly, but it also means that they need to keep their eye on the next steps. They have to take risks, take on new assignments outside of the areas that they've already mastered, leap into new organizations, expand their networks, and this is one I think is really important that sometimes we don't do as well in. Make sure everyone knows about the accomplishments that they are accumulating. And of course, when we consider why women earn less than men, women's willingness to leap into new and untried roles is not the only explanation. The fact that women's lives are different is also extremely meaningful. Harvard economist Claudia Goldin was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics and Science in 2023 for her work in women in the labor force. She has shown that an important contributor to the gender pay gap are the outsized rewards of those jobs with extraordinary time demands that women with children find difficult to navigate. So the question is, does it really need to be that way? Consider the talent being lost because of inflexible career structures and the assumption that the ideal employee is one without any caregiving responsibilities. All of us at the top of our organizations have the opportunity to rethink the way we structure careers in order to make them more hospitable to women with family, or to, quite frankly, to families in general, but at the same time, while achieving the goals of the organization. So allowing women to realize their highest ambitions will not only benefit individual women, it will help shape the world around us at this crucial moment when powerful new technologies such as generative AI and CRISPR genome editing are poised to transform the way we work, the way we heal, and the way we live. Last year's Nobel laureates in economics, Darren Acemoglu and Simon Johnson, have pointed out that at many points in human history, technological progress meant great wealth for a few, but very little progress for the majority. They've noted that the direction of progress depends on which visions society follows. So we do need to be following a vision of shared health and prosperity and of increasing opportunity for all. But we'll never achieve such a vision without equal opportunities for women and without powerful women at the tables where the decisions are made. So we clearly need to help the generations of women who follow us to become charismatic leaders because the world depends on it. So thank you.
And now it is my great honor to introduce all of our panelists. Lulu Wang, class of 66, founder, CEO, Tupelo Capital Management. Jinqing Cai, class of 91, president of Kering Greater China. And Stephanie Lowe, class of 2004, vice chairman and executive director of Shui On Group. And our moderator, Ms. Kristie Lou Stout from CNN.
Thank you, Alice, for that. First off, I'd like to wish everyone in this room a happy belated International Women's Day. Because in this audience, I see female leaders, I see mothers, I see daughters, I see educators, I see journalists, I see students, I also see feminists, and I also see our allies as well. So happy belated International Women's Day. And also a big thank you and another round of applause to Dr. Johnson for giving a very impactful speech on the need for women and girls to be educated, to be supported throughout their careers, and to break down barriers. Because this is the truth that demands our attention. As Paula, aka Dr. Johnson, pointed out so eloquently just now, women around the world are under pressure, are underpaid, and underrepresented. And if there's another truth that demands our attention, this is according to UN Women. It said that around the world, women hold less than 30% of the top leadership positions in business. And yet, there are studies that show in businesses that have greater gender diversity at the very top, these are companies, and I know Lulu can talk about this, these are companies that regularly outperform their peers financially. So gender equality is not just about fairness or equity. It really is about unleashing potential, right? The kind of potential to transform economies and societies. So welcome to Power of Presence. We have here on the stage some incredible women who represent accomplishment and also inspire so many of us. And they also represent very different industries as well. Lulu is a pioneering investment manager and philanthropist. You founded Tupelo Capital and also an alum, a proud alum of Wellesley. Paula, cardiologist, master of health, educator, academic, president of Wellesley College. Jinqing Cai, another proud alum of Wellesley. There is a theme here. Shout out to Wellesley. I didn't go to Wellesley, but I'm very curious about this place. I want to learn more about it from these ladies. She is the president, Greater China of Kering, and she has helped redefine luxury in one of the most dynamic markets in the world. And also Stephanie, vice chairman of Shui On Group, and she's been leading the charge in real estate development projects that are redefining luxury as well as sustainability. So a big round of applause for our panelists. So in the next 30 minutes, 40 minutes or so, we're just going to engage in some moderated Q&A. I am being mindful of timing. So Alice, when we need to cut, just go like this, all right? And then we'll open it up to Q&A with the audience first. But right off the bat, I want to talk about Wellesley. Okay, this is an event being organized by Wellesley College alums as well as Asia Society. There is a strong Wellesley connection here. And if you could just go back in time to the moments when you were students and when you first stepped foot on campus to become president, I believe it was in 2016, could you just take us back then and how it reframed you as a person and who and what you are today? And Dr. Johnson, Paula, can we start with you?
It's a wonderful question. You know, I think that coming to Wellesley from academic medicine, it wasn't in my life plan. And I think it's a lesson, actually, for young women, which is you don't necessarily have it all mapped out at the beginning, but what a wonderful opportunity. And at some point, we'll talk a little bit about that transition. But coming to a women's college where there is such a belief in the possibility, the belief in the future of women, it is palpable in all corners of the college, and I think our alumni really bear that out. It was really just a moment of great joy and pride. I do have to add, my mother-in-law is a Wellesley alumna, was a Wellesley alumna, so it did bring tears to her eyes. But coming to Wellesley and really understanding the excellence that we provide and that we continue to accelerate, I think has been one of the joys in thinking about how we accelerate the advancement of young women across fields and disciplines. We've been through a lot of tumultuous times since 2016. I won't go through all of them, but each year has brought its own challenges. But I would say that due to the strength of the college, our leadership, our alumni, through any number of challenges, we've managed to not only thrive, but really leap forward in very powerful ways.
Thank you. And Lulu, Jinqing, and Stephanie, if we could go back in time and tell us about the moment when you were on campus as a Wellesley student. What were you like as a student? And how did your experience there shape you and your career? Lulu, please.
Thank you. I think I sometimes look at the young people these days, and they're so programmed. Everything's on a plan. They're linear in the way they map out their lives. And I always tell them, relax. Life is not linear, and I think I was a good example of that. When I was in high school, I was a very good student, very focused on doing all the right things. And I came from a very traditional Chinese family, so fairly constrained life. But when I got to Wellesley, the world was my apple. My goodness, all of a sudden, discover boys. MIT and Harvard was right around the corner. So I kind of took a little holiday from studying for the first year or two. I met my husband when I was on the end of my freshman year. So I was spending a lot of time commuting to New Haven, but he was at Yale. But I never stopped having the curiosity that drew me to Wellesley, and that has been a trademark of my life, and so much of it has been Wellesley. I think that curiosity, so that even if I was cutting class because I was going down to New Haven, I would try to catch some of the really great classes and my favorite professors. And those courses really shaped my life of interest in science, interest in art, in history. And I will never forget the professors who just fed my curiosity and made me continue to ask why. And even after I left Wellesley and I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while, I very quickly realized that wherever Wellesley women go, we are expected to make a difference. And when my husband was at Cornell Law School, I wasn't going to stay at home and just take care of our son. I decided, this Cornell University, they're so boring. The law school kids don't do anything but study. So I created the first ever lecture series at the law school and brought in some really interesting speakers. And here I was just really almost a college dropout. But I think the curiosity of learning what's going on in the world, what shapes it, was something that Wellesley kept alive in me throughout my time.
Wow. So Wellesley, not just... curiosity was already ignited inside you before you went to Wellesley, but it was further set aflame, and then you were able to ride that out even afterwards. It's fantastic. Jinqing, share your experiences.
Yeah, so I still vividly remember the first time I stepped myself on Wellesley campus, coming from Beijing, where I was born and raised and grew up. And I was actually a transfer student from Beijing University studying chemistry. And when I arrived at Wellesley, I just find that time and space has altered to a different world. I feel there's such tranquility, such beauty, and historical figures that in our mind from Chinese students are always like Madame Chiang Kai-shek, Bing Xin, who wrote her novel 致小读者 from the side of the lake weapon. So all these romanticize my experience at Wellesley. I feel like I'm in part a living history, but I also find extremely invigorating because I met so many students, Wellesley alumni, that I never dreamed before that could become a woman with such elegance, such power, such intellectual curiosity, and also very well balanced with life, with family, with outlook in their life, in philanthropy and everything. So I think it's like a awakening moment for me, what to expect as a woman. Coming from China, where I grew up with 3 elder brothers, I felt I was like a tomboy, what boy can do, I can do better, always like that, right? But coming to Wellesley really helped me be more aware of a woman and the meaning of being a woman through the lives. And I also have to say, after arriving at Wellesley, I took up the freedom of taking the liberal arts colleges, liberal arts curriculums. So that was where I first studied art history. And who knows, many years later, I started to work at Kristie's. That really opened a new window, but it planted a seed for me at a very early, young age. And I was also at the sports. So I was a basketball team at Wellesley. I was able to travel around New England. So that also gave me a very strong physical sort of endurance and the teamwork.
Your experience there invigorated you, and you also had an awakening as a Wellesley student. Thank you. And Stephanie?
I think 2 kind of very vivid memories come back to mind. I remember before going to Wellesley, I was quite worried. You hear about Wellesley, all these very powerful women and esteemed alumni going there. It's all women's college. There must be so much competition. And I got there, and I remember being very struck by the fact that the women were not competing with each other. They were really competing with themselves. And that strive for excellence, I think, has really driven my work ethic and learning how to really always push and strive for better. And I think to what Paula mentioned in your speech, having that very safe environment where you can share multiple different views, that there is so much strength in diversity. And I remember, this was, 25 years ago. I took a women's studies class, the beauty of a liberal arts education. And I remember, debating gender identity and politics at that time. And that was completely eye-opening to me. And connecting the dots back to today, where that's quite a prominent topic, Wellesley was way ahead. To be able to open one's eyes to these different types of ideas and debate it in a very safe environment, that's very, very powerful. So I think that shaped me, who I am today, and also how to lead within an organization.
And after Wellesley, the 3 of you as alums, you have embarked on 3 very different industries, very different careers. All 4 of you represent 4 different sectors. When you look back at your careers up to this moment, what do you believe is the biggest challenge that you had to face, and how were you able to surmount it? And we could just start down the line. We'll start with you, Lulu.
Thank you. I was an English lit major at Wellesley, but as I mentioned, Wellesley fed my curiosity. And my husband is a securities lawyer, and so when it came time for me to look for some work, after our son was a bit placed in school, I said, well, like Stephanie said, what he can do, I can do better. So he was a securities lawyer, I was going to be a securities analyst. And I had the confidence, which Wellesley fed, to break into a field that I had no MBA then. I really wasn't trained, but I thought my curiosity gave me that edge to always ask why a company is successful, why it's not, why management teams are good, why they're not. And that ability to be curious and to look for the answer was a great impetus to my career. I think it's Also, I was competing at that time before I got my MBA, mostly with Harvard MBAs. I worked in some great firms where most of the men came from HBS, and I was the only person without the graduate degree. But I always felt, gosh, I'm at Wellesley. They're only from Harvard. And it gave me the confidence that I could always be able to do as well as they, if not better. So the ability to be curious, to be confident, to see myself where I could be, regardless of my gender, my immediate training, was a really gift that Wellesley gave me.
So a challenge, I think I'm just going to go back to a much earlier, I'll also go back to an early stage when I was finishing my training. So that's when you finish medical school and you've done all of your training. After I was a chief resident, I was going to get ready, and I did 3 years of cardiology, so it's a lot of years, and I was getting ready to really launch my career. And my chief of medicine, who was a very, very powerful man in medicine, probably the most powerful in the United States, we sat down, and he said to me, so tell me, you know, kind of where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And I told him, I'm a clinical epidemiologist. I won't go into all of that, but I was doing something quite different. I was really looking at issues of gender and patterns of care and really thinking about how we could really change paradigms using data. And he looked at me and he said, I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Wow.
And he said it wasn't out of malice, but he thought that at the time that it would be viewed as a career that was self-serving as opposed to serving science. And I had to really go home and think about that because it came as somewhat of a shock. I had already planned what I was going to do, and here was the most powerful man in medicine telling me he didn't think that it was particularly a good idea. And I went back, I thought about it, talked with my husband, kind of processed it a bit, and decided this was my direction, this was really where my heart was. And it was what I had been really training to do. And I did it, but it was with self-reflection. And for me, it was one, having the confidence, but also the ability to reflect and ask the question. And I think it's been a life lesson. The other lesson for me in that was that I remained friends with that person and looked to him in many ways for mentorship that was different. Because it taught me that people are not unidimensional, that somebody can say something because they don't agree. You don't know exactly where that comes from. And 20 years down the line, after the relationship, he apologized to me after I kind of had really made my way in a very important way. And he said, you know, I really was wrong. And so it's always been something I've held with me, but thought about really that initial launch.
That's incredible because one of many aspects that makes your career and your life story so remarkable, Paula, is that you have been a champion for women's health, for fighting for equity in healthcare, for saying, yes, there is such a thing as female-centric medical research. Heart disease is not just a man thing. And also exposing sexual harassment for female scientists. That's a thing that happened. And to imagine going back in time that there was that moment where you could have either stopped and shut down or pushed forward. You pushed forward. And not only that, you continued to engage with the naysayer. And he did the right thing by apologizing to you. That's really powerful. Thank you. Jinqing.
Yeah, for me, I think Wellesley is not just an education, it's really an inspiration for a lifetime. You know, when I make various decisions of facing different challenges, it gives me spiritual strength. I mean, thinking about what a Wellesley woman could do, you know, because as Lulu said, you know, we're very confident. I mean, the school you went in and you feel people believe in women, right? So there's a very strong conviction that we can achieve anything as long as we put our minds in it. And also breakthrough, you know, I think we are always looking for that opportunity to make a difference. I mean, this is Wellesley's motto, right? So we educate women who can make a difference to the world. That's really my best motto in life. Whenever I face a choice, I would say, well, what a difference I could make to the situation, or what a difference I could make to this organization. And that really guide me in various of my career choices and in my different career challenges. Like Kristie's, for instance, when I was called for this job, being the first managing director for Kristie's in China, I was like, oh, how could you think I could do it? I was not even the art business, in the art business at all, but they were like, oh, we think you are the right person that can, help us to develop and expand our auction platform in China. So with that kind of a mandate, I was thinking, how could I make a difference for such a great art house who had over 260-year-old history? Over my first year, I was able to achieve for Kristie to become the first international auction house for auction in China. So that was a great milestone for Kristie, but for me, it was a breakthrough in my career as well. It's really achieved that dream that you really connect China with the world, which I think also is another sort of role I can play and continue to play. And not only with the artists, but the art collectors, the whole awareness about, art world is no boundary, that kind of realization. And it's also the same, when I was at Kering, I was thinking about how can I make a difference to such a, well-esteemed luxury house and different houses, right? So if you look at Kering, it's an organization, or Kering is for women, because our consumers are majority of women. Our staff, 70% of our staff globally, we have 47,000 staff, and 70% are women. And in our management and in our leadership, over 50% are women. On our board, we are about 50%. So this is a real, true, I guess, case, best scenario, how a mission-led organization, a business, can really benefit for all the women and contribute to move the society forward. So it's that reason when I when I selected Kering, I felt this mission of caring for women is really well aligned with my personal purpose.
I think reflecting back on one of the biggest challenges, I studied architecture in Wellesley, and I worked at a number of architecture firms in New York after graduation. I was there for maybe at least seven or so years. But then the financial crisis hit. And, in that period of time, it was a pretty tumultuous time, especially in New York. A lot of people were getting laid off. And so my husband and I decided to make the move back to Asia. So at that period, and this was never necessarily in my life plan, I joined the family business. Architecture background, liberal arts, never studied business. My Chinese was patchy at best. So it was a pretty big culture shock for me, having to learn a new sector, having to learn new culture, a new way of working. So that was actually a very big challenge, and especially joining a family business, in a Chinese context, there was a lot of eyes on. And I think, naturally an introvert, I felt very self-conscious. But I think I very quickly realized it's really not about me. It's really about what I can do to help the team, what I can do to serve others. And so I think for me, once that realization clicked, it just eased a lot of the pressure and the burden. And I think that really is, looking back on all the leaders that I respect a lot, it's really that kind of servant leadership that I think really brings the world together today. So I think going through those challenges really helped me reflect on what's important.
That's great tangible advice there for the girls and younger women in the audience. Whenever you feel that you're hitting a wall, why am I chosen to do this? I am not worthy. It's not about you. You shift the attention to the greater cause or the greater mission at hand, and then you have that servant leadership mentality. Now, we're living in a time that is particularly tumultuous now. due in part to the person who is occupying the White House yet again. And so we are living in a time of tariffs, of trade barriers, of sanctions, of immigration barriers. There's something called the anti-CCP bill, visa bill, that's being floated through Congress right now, something that's deeply concerning to a number of students and parents who are in this audience. I wanted to ask you, in your respective fields and your positions, how are you being affected by the decisions coming out of Washington, and how are you choosing to navigate it? Lulu.
Well, you have described the current world as it is. It's very fractured and it's very fractious. But I think women, particularly Wellesley women, with our sense of service, which gives us a sense of connectedness. You cannot serve people without being connected to people. It puts us in a particular position of responsibility to try to bring this world together and to make it more functional. I think when you think about service, whether it's in business or in politics, if you look with empathy to people around you, whether they're your competitors, your colleagues, your superiors, your subordinates, that sense of connectedness is so important. Often I'm asked, what was the biggest challenge in your career path moving up in the investment world, which is mostly dominated by men? And I said one of the biggest challenges was that when you're in a field where performance is very easily measured and you rise by performance, very often if you tend to be good and you're a woman, you could rise very quickly, and before you know it, you have men who are older than you, men who've put more years than you, who are reporting to you, which puts it in a very awkward position. How do you manage that? You manage that by having empathy. Because I think, gosh, if I were a 55-year-old man and a 35-year-old woman is now his boss, how would I feel? Pretty bad. And so I always felt that if I always presented myself as someone who was an enabler, a partner to anyone I worked with, whether it was a male or a female, and if I took this 55-year-old guy aside and I said, wow, I think you're really good at what you're doing, and this is the mission for our group. And I'm honored to be leading the mission, but here's the important role you could play in it. Yeah. So you empower him, you partner with him, and before you know, you not only have his respect, but he thinks you're his supporter, and he becomes a part of your team. And whether this is in the business context or even serving on boards where there are a lot of egos around, if you can just make people feel that you all share something in common, a mission, and that you are going to be someone's supporter rather than someone who's their competitor, it really does bring things together. And I think politically it works the same way. Whether you're trying to work across the aisle in Congress or you're trying to work across very fractious issues between Jewish kids and the Palestinian kids, if you just sit down, talk to each other, find out what you have in common, you can find that yourself working together more together than against each other.
So you choose to lean into empathy and connectivity during these times, these fractious times. Thank you. Paula.
Well, I think, building, Lulu, on what you just said and how you build those connections, it is what we do in higher education, and that's why higher education is so critically important, and it is so important that we preserve what we have, which is truly extraordinary, of bringing young people from across the world, from so many different places and backgrounds together to understand each other, to learn together, side by side, to live together, side by side in those dorms. It is what the world really needs. And I shared it in my remarks that we don't take that by chance. It doesn't happen by chance. I think we are very purposeful about it. We must preserve it. Now, at a very foundational level, this is a frightening time. And there's all the work we're doing on our campus to ensure that those students who feel most at risk, including our international students, have the security and the safety that they need to be able to learn freely and to do that work unencumbered, which is what they came to college to do. But, you know, we have the threat to the higher level of higher education, so to the entire discipline, the entire field. And that's a place where we do have to organize, where we cannot take for granted that everyone values what it is we provide. And we are organizing with we've been leading the organization of liberal arts colleges, particularly those that are highly selective, to really talk to our leaders in Congress about what it is we do. And that can't be taken for granted. We have to tell our stories, because the number of areas that are threatening our future are significant, whether it be issues on immigration. Our country wouldn't be the same, our schools wouldn't be the same without our international students and population. The threat to research with federal funding, a threat that is not just a threat to individual institutions, it is a threat to the future of our world. We are the engines of knowledge production, of scientific research. And then third, the threat to take away our endowments, which are so important for how we bring in the students and do the work that we have to do. So all of that to say, we have to keep our campuses outstanding, moving forward, make sure our students can just learn in an unencumbered way. But at the same time, we have to really lead the journey to protect what is so, in my mind, so sacred for our world.
Facing down so many threats as you laid out just then, but while continuing to engage with Washington, but most importantly, looking after your students and your community. Yeah, Jinqing.
Yeah, I'd like to believe that you know, in my sector, right, we have the power of brand. This is our weapon, our platform, to represent something, you know, pushing social progress and bring positive energy and beauty, as well as beauty. So I think all our brands, I mean, under Kering, of course, there are a lot of beloved brands. We try to follow the same vision, which is luxury and sustainability is one and the same. So we try to draw the common and critical issues of the world, like climate change, and how can we, through our brand's power, leading this industry to transform to be more environmentally friendly, socially friendly, and as well as being innovative and bringing the creativity of today, so that we create and contribute to a legacy of mankind for the future. You know, today's creation is tomorrow's heritage. So how to keep the history, the heritage that we built with our brands, with the community, with our suppliers, with all the, you know, farmers and, you know, herders, you know, for producing raw material, all together for this game. Because industry alliance is very important. It's not one company can achieve our goal, but it's really through collaboration with our stakeholders, with all the industry and consumers, that we can bring together positive change to our immediate audience as well as the society. That's what I tend to believe.
And Melania loves Saint Laurent and Bottega Veneta, right?
And because they also represent a self-expression of these things, you know, social progress, environmental responsibility, and creativity. It's a self-expression that they're looking for when they buy a product from our brands, I hope.
Stephanie, want to get your thoughts on this?
I think Trump 2.0 is really only just beginning. And really largely defined by a ton of uncertainty and volatility, right? So I think from a business perspective, we're just bracing for more of that. And actually, you know, given what China's gone through and the world's gone through for COVID and, you know, the economic challenges that China's facing right now, we've been really learning to build our muscles in agility and resilience, because that's really the name of the game right now in business. So, you know, in Chinese, there's a saying, 危中有机, there's opportunity in crisis. And so how do we actually turn this crisis into learning to do things in a newer way. Just as an example, in COVID, we have a lot of projects in Wuhan. Wuhan was one of the hardest hit cities throughout the pandemic. We had a large residential site that we needed to launch sales for. Real estate, it's brick and mortar. People have a show flat, you visit the show flat, you can go and see the sales. But everything was shut in lockdown. And so, our team had to be very resilient on the ground, and they basically shifted all of the sales online. We had virtual showrooms. We launched a virtual sales platform for units that were upwards of 50 to 70 million RMB. We were very worried, naturally, whether or not this would work, but we were very fortunate that actually the units all sold through, over 100 units sold through in 10 minutes. And so it really is a testament to just thinking and relearning new ways of working. And I think sometimes that pushes you to innovate and find new opportunities.
In times of crisis, you have to pivot. And that crisis point could be COVID, it could be zero COVID, it could be a new Trump administration. There's also and just to bring it back to a key theme of this discussion, there's also the challenge of being a woman today. Because it's one of many fact-based metrics that Paula mentioned during her keynote address. Women are underpaid, underrepresented, under pressure in many areas of the world, under threat of harassment and abuse. According to the World Economic Forum, no country in the world, even in Scandinavia, has achieved gender parity. And WEF also says gender equality will not be achieved until 134 years from now, based on current rates of progress, which equates to 5 generations from now. So for a lot of younger women, for a lot of the girls and young women in this audience, and they hear this, and they hear the stories, and they understand the barriers that need to be broken down, how do you maintain hope? How do you maintain optimism, and how do you push forward? What is your message? We'll start with you, Lulu.
Well, I think that's a very important question, and I really think women, and it has worked for myself, is to spend less of my energy thinking about how unjust the world is and how bad the world is, but think about how I can show people that I and all my other women colleagues can do the job even better. Because we do need to keep upping our game. And in business, if you can perform, you're going to get the nod and get the raise. And so instead of focusing on being the victim, focus on how I can continue to be better and better and better, contribute to my company, contribute to my institution. And it's amazing. Performance really will be a very big persuasion for people, letting you have the opportunity to do even more. It's very often that women think, well, it's a disadvantage. I'm often asked, how did you manage in Wall Street? You're a woman and you're Asian. And I said, well, they were advantages. They were not disadvantages. If you think of the fact, in marketing, you want to differentiate, right? So if you're a woman and you're the only one in the room, of course you're going to get noticed. So it's incumbent on you to say the smart thing, to come up with the best answer. And you'll be remembered more so than a man who did the same thing. So here, a disadvantage turns into a real advantage. So don't be defeatist. Think of the glass as half full and use all that energy instead of being complaining, but just keep pushing on. And reach behind you, bring the women behind you. You not only have the responsibility to open the doors, but hold the doors open behind you.
Amen, sister. Thank you, Lulu.
There is no choice, right? I mean, there is no other choice but hope. And that's the beauty and the challenge. I feel so fortunate to have been in 2 careers in which the essence of them is hope, medicine and higher education. And now I call myself being in the business of young people. And when you're in the business of young people, it is a business of hope. Because they are our future. And so I think that, to me, the motivation, the challenge of what's ahead, there is no challenge that is too large. because we cannot turn back. And I think even though we're not where we want to be, think about where we were, the progress that has been made. And, I think everyone on this panel has said, how can we make a difference personally, in our leadership roles, in the gifts that we've been given in leadership, to make it different, to open up those doors for so many behind us, but to also do it with an integrity, with a passion, and with an optimism that becomes really something that is felt and experienced by all those around you.
Thank you. So maintaining hope, optimism, while always in service to others. Jinqing.
Yeah, I think it's embracing the changes is very important. Also, in the Chinese, nowadays, a popular saying like 中女时代, like the middle age or middle woman's era. Basically, it's from according to I Ching, right? So this is the era for middle women to thrive, like for the next 20-something years.
Oh, for women in midlife.
Yes.
中女时代
中女时代, it's like a,
So this is
it's
our
a
prime
talk
time.
about everywhere on social media. It's our era. So we need to embrace it. We need to seize opportunities. So I was, having a conversation with Paula yesterday. I was saying, when I was called by Xiaomi to become the first women board member, I was like, yes, I love this company. I would love to do this, right? So I think we need to embrace this kind of opportunities with our biggest enthusiasm, because we recognize the era is, for women to thrive. It's very important. And once that opportunities are realizing, you see the cultural shift, the mindset shift, that people take it as a given and no longer to ask the question why or how or can a woman be suited for this job.
Wonderful, uplifting mantra, trending on Chinese social media. I had no idea. Thank you. Stephanie, your thoughts?
I echo everything that's been said, but I think just to take a slightly different angle. Obviously, there's so much in the world that happens that we can't control, but echoing what all the ladies have said on stage, I think what doesn't measure also doesn't get done, right? So at least for me, I challenge our own organization that we have to continue to track our impact, because what gets measured, then you can see the progress that you've made or where the gaps are. And I think data holds us accountable. And so having that data, having that target setting internally, whatever they may be, is really critical.
Having a sense of radical self-awareness, and if you have data available to let you know how you're performing, you can only perform better and get even better. Now, from talking about the 中女时代, the midlife women's era, let's talk about Generation Z, because there are members of Generation Z in this audience, or there are women and men here who have daughters in particular, and sons as well, members of this generation. This is a generation that has been shaped by technology, always on, social media, climate crisis made real, the nightmare that was the COVID pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. What's your thinking about Generation Z, their needs, their thinking, but also as a female leader, how best to cultivate and to encourage this generation to rise up and eventually also take the reins? Lulu.
I love that question. I think we all hear that because of social media, a lot of young people and Gen Z people live in echo chambers, and they just really hear what they want to hear, and that causes a lot of emotional and mental distress because you're really quite isolated. So go back to my sense that we are all better off if we're connected. And so I find that whether it's dealing with Gen Z young people or all people in general, connect with them And I find Gen Zers don't want to be talked to all the time because they're always being talked to, being marketed to. But you spend time listening to them. I have lots of young friends who are Gen Zers, and we become good friends because I'm the old person who is the rare one who wants to hear their thoughts. I don't keep telling them what to do. I keep saying, what do you think about that? Or, but this is a problem that we're all dealing with. What do you think about it? Instead of waiting for the old people to tell them what to do. And so again, being open, being empathetic, asking them what their solutions are, and then getting behind the facts that they'll generate. Let's say, well, they all can Google everything, so they have a lot of facts. But to ask them, so, all right, these are the facts you have, but what is behind the facts that provides a solution for the problem we're talking about? Get them to think a level below the facts that they're living with. And I think it creates great conversations, and it creates a bond between our generation and them, because they think, well, this old person is interested in what I have to say. And so we will learn a lot, and they will learn a lot from us.
We have to listen and ask questions.
Well, I think, Lulu, you kind of talked about what I would say is first on my list, which is the need to create the connections. And we could go on, probably social media would be another whole hour. But I think between social media and a number of other factors accelerated by COVID have led to not only isolation, but a sense of anxiety and loneliness. And it's something that at least we work, and I talked a little bit about that earlier, to really counter, because the connections are critical in terms of health and well-being and the ability to learn. And if I think about Gen Zers and what they're looking for, particularly not only in an educational environment, but the young ones who are coming to work for us, they're looking for an environment in which they can think more holistically about their lives. They're very concerned about not only their advancement, but also about their psychological health. And I think one of the things we have to do, both as a school, but also as employers, is to work with our young people to build resilience, to actually help them accept failure. Some of that we can tell our own stories, but help them accept failure as part of the journey, to understand that anxiety and levels of sadness sometimes during these ages of 15 to 28 is normal. Yeah. It's a very tumultuous time of life. That's what you're going to experience. Let's not pathologize it all. And really beginning to kind of really help to bolster, and while listening and validating, but bolster the resilience and strength, particularly of young women who have higher rates of anxiety and depression. So I think this is really a women's issue, and one that we can both acknowledge, but kind of move forward beyond.
Love that message, emphasizing connection, but also not pathologizing emotional ups and downs. It is normal to feel uncertain, anxious, depressed, but it's important to get a sense of community so there's a support network around you, right? Jinqing.
Yeah, I have two daughters, two Gen Zs, basically. So I live through, this kind of growing pain. It is, I think, also a lot of it is, reflecting yourself and looking for strengths within yourself. The self means you could come from, individuality, from your spirituality, from your family and your, historical links, and study history. And but I think a lot of these anxieties are created by labels. I mean, in today's world, there's so many labels. Like in the social media, you could have 1,000 labels within one individual, right? So I think we need to we need to get rid of these labels. We can't be defined by age. A teenager, you can achieve and have ambition of a much grown-up person, or being a very mature lady, you can go and achieve some dream goals that you have once you were a child. So I think we need to really delabel and that's conscious effort to delabel ourselves and really just look at ourselves, because I believe every individual is a treasure mine. You can find all kinds of strengths, quality within you. You just need to discover it and helping to realize it, and finding people who support you, and to become more self-aware and self-confident.
There is gold dust. There is treasure in everyone. I love that. Stephanie.
In my experience, and whether through work or another nonprofit organization I founded that's really about youth empowerment, one big observation I've had is that there's a lot of discussion around the motivation of Gen Z, right? But I think the core is in the why. If you can unlock the why, if they believe in what you do, and there's values alignment, I think you'll see that they give 120%. So for me, my learning is I have to spend a lot more time investing in the communication. Why do we do what we do? What is this really about? And I think there's a lot of passion around, creating impact. I actually founded a youth empowerment nonprofit in Hong Kong, a small one, with several other friends, 3 other friends, called Project Mellow. And it's a small organization that basically pairs C-suite level executives with a small fellowship of university graduates in Hong Kong. And I think what we saw was that there is a strong generational divide, and often misperceptions in politics, identity, and such. But through working together, they actually learned a lot from each other, to Lulu's point. There was a lot of reverse mentorship, in fact, rather than you would expect the older generation to be able to tell them what to do. I, in fact, saw that there was a lot of reverse mentoring. And I think because of that, the younger generation felt really heard. And they felt that they could work on projects together with, these very senior executives and leaders whom they would have, looked up to and never had the chance to work with them for a while. And so building that dialogue, building that ability to see resilience, see their challenges, I think that is very powerful. So I think it really comes down to, do they believe in what you do, and can they make an impact?
Thank you, Stephanie. Along with everyone else in this room, I read your bios before our conversation today. We all were expecting to hear from accomplished women, but the level of insight, generosity, and wisdom, really off the charts. Thank you so much for answering my questions. We're going to open it up to the audience. So now it's audience Q&A. We do have there we go, hands up, right there in the back. Hi there. Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda McAfee. Jinqing. I can't believe it's you. I knew Jinqing.
Linda knew me when I was 20.
When they were here, we used to call them the chuppies because there were so many PRC kids who came from all the Ivies. They were the most impressive group of people in Hong Kong. And we had the opportunity to be very close friends, my husband in particular, right?
You're like my mentor, like my host family in Hong Kong. Thank you, Linda.
I'm so
Engaged.
happy to see you.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyway, I'm not a Gen Z or anything. I'm a what they call baby boomer generation, which many of you probably don't know. And of course, I can't, echo everything you've said. I've been a career woman all my life, and I believe I still am, not yet retired. But one question that keeps coming up with all the young people at the Columbia alumni and McGill or whatever young people that we talk to, is with the women and these are all career women. They still always ask, what about being a mother? And I think it's so undervalued now that being a successful mother, to me, should be added in the equation. It's like asking what's a GNP or GDP. They forgot lifestyle, the E stuff. And I really don't know how many companies are much more enlightened and helping women with their children and so on. One thing we've done in our company, especially in the Philippines, is we're really encouraging the men to do their part, bring the kids to the doctor, do all those things as well. And so they're always allowed to go, because it's always left to the women. But I still would like to ask how, because I think all of you have experienced that we do have to factor in being a good mom. I mean, it's the most important success we should ever have. So I just wanted to ask, maybe you can advise all the generations what I won't tell you what I did because I really didn't do much. But anyway, it will be nice to know how you factored that part in.
Yeah, it's a great question about motherhood, but also widening it out a little bit, work-life integration. And how do you integrate personal goals, including it's a very personal and individual decision to become a mom, into your career and your lifelong journey? Your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Linda. I think the professional who is successful is also one that has been able to integrate their professional and their personal life. And I think the companies who support this integration are also going to be the more successful companies. And I think from my personal experience has been that you don't want your family to think that they're competing against your company for your attention. That's a very dangerous dynamic and a negative one. I think if you make your family feel that they're part of the team that you're on, and your success is their success, and if you try to do things together, when I was first starting to work, my son was very young, and he always kind of felt out of it because his mom wasn't there when other mothers were there to play dates and so forth. But I bought him this great big bulletin board, and every time I travel, I send him kind of cool postcards. If I was visiting General Dynamics, I was visiting Caterpillar, or visiting General Mills, I sent him postcards and free specimens, products from wherever I was. And he was the only kid among his friends who had postcards and toys pinned to his bulletin board, and he could brag about his mom having done that. So instead of having a working mom being a liability, it became a kind of a cool thing for him to show off with his friends. So he became part of my team. And it doesn't hurt at dinner time, say, no, what do you think of this cereal versus that cereal? Or just ask them their opinion. Then they feel that you really feel they're part of your success.
That's great. That's great.
So I just want to say I love the fact that you, this is great, Lulu. And I think you're so right, you know, that our children are proud of and feel part of that success. But I just want to say I am so happy that you use the word integration as opposed to balance, because
That was
it
intentional,
is.
yes.
I know it was, and it was really important, because when we say balance, there's some sense that there's always some balance that you can achieve. And that's not life. That just isn't the way it works. I mean, I do think that I have 2 children, and really thinking about what your priorities are, and your children are a priority, your work is a priority, your husband is a priority, your kind of health is a priority, and thinking about how you are going to lead your lives, and everything will have a place and time, and you cannot predict exactly what it's going to look like every single day. But provide kind of a scaffolding at home that allows you to have some flexibility, which I think is really important. Also, don't have a model of what an outstanding mother is. It has to be something for you. What is being an outstanding parent for you, and not some external model that has been imposed on our society. The other thing for the young women in the room and the young men, choose your partner well.
Yes.
You know, I mean, choose your partner well. This is a life journey, and your partner is a partner in how you're going to integrate work and life. And then I'll just say 2 last things. We're here talking about children, but I think we also have to think about the entirety of life, and really thinking about your friendships. What makes you whole as a person. You aren't just your career, you aren't just a parent, but there's a number of dimensions. And also think about some of the passions you talked about. You know, Stephanie, you're a nonprofit. You know, I chaired the public health department in Boston, which was volunteer. These are things that give you energy, they are learning, they are invigorating, they are integrated even into a busy life, but they make you whole. And then lastly, we have to consider what is keeping us healthy. And again, there's no formula to it. It's not just about exercise. It's whatever it is for you. It could be your spirituality. It could be any number of things. But really think about the totality of your life and how do you integrate those pieces.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you.
It's so well said. I don't know how to follow that. But I think it's the value of being a mother can be also shown through your self, action. Like I have the two daughters I have, they were like, oh, I don't want to have children, typical Gen Z, right? So it's like I can only show what I can do and the actions I'm taking and the value and respect and benefits I took as a mother, as a working mother, hopefully can really show them that it's a meaningful role that they can play when they are more mature.
I think for me that question really is a we, not an I, and I fully agree that this should actually not just be a women's topic, but as a family unit to discuss, the shifting of roles and the different seasons in life for a career and or at home. And I think with that same vein, we also think about how we hope that our colleagues in the company can have a longevity of a career rather than just a job. And in order to do that, I hope we can walk with them through different seasons in life, whether it's a birth, whether it's your child going to high school or getting into college, or taking care of an aging parent. So we also have a policy in the company called Family Days. So on top of any public holiday or annual leave or sick leave or what have you, there's 20 family days that you can take at your choosing. Whether you can choose to work from home, if you need to take some time off to go to a parent-teacher conference, if you need to, take care of your mom, bring them to the doctor, whatever it may be, you're entitled to use it at your choosing. And I think it's really important to create a culture that it's okay to ask. So you're not penalized for that, and that we embrace this, and that we can have a culture that family is a priority, and that it should be, and it shouldn't be a choice between work or life.
Yeah, it's wonderful you have that HR policy in place to promote work-life integration. Well done. Okay, we have time for just one more question, and is there a young person? Is there a? Oh my goodness. All right, I'm seeing two young people. Let's give them both a chance to ask their questions. How about that? Let's combine the questions. Please, young ladies, stand up, take the mic, and ask a question one after another. And this will be a great way to round out the panel. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sophia, class of 18. Thank you so much for everyone sharing. So I work in the field of tech, and as you all know, we've talked a bit about it. AI is disrupting the workforce, especially in Gen Z. It's creating a lot of anxiety. I come from the Zillennial generation, so on the cusp of millennials and Gen Z. So with the shift in workforce and the rising unemployment after college, what are some advice that you would give to young people starting out their careers in finding opportunities? Companies are getting leaner. Your companies are using more AI, for example, to replace work, and I think that's a core of a lot of young people's anxiety. So, what advice would you give to people in the shifting landscape?
Thank you. Okay, so first question, advice for a fresh graduate, getting yourself out there, finding new work, especially in the tech space. And then the other question, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your insightful sharing. And my name is Jenna. I would like to ask for Generation Z that we unavoidable every day. We live with social media. So my question is, how would you live peacefully with social media and sustain your internal power? I mean, nowadays that women tend to be labeled as someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's wife. But since when we grow up, how to find our internal power and how to maintain that?
How to find your internal power and how to maintain that. That's another great question. And we have a third question.
I also have a young question for you.
And, oh my goodness. Okay, here. Please, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Arabella. I'm a sophomore in high school, currently studying in Massachusetts. And this question is just for Miss Tai. May I please ask, what has your experience been like working at Kristie's? And how does an art history degree help leverage into that career? As I'm also really interested in working in the art business world. Thank you.
We have go-getters in this audience. I love it. Okay, and then we have another
quick
question
one.
here.
I teach at CUHK in mergers, acquisition, and emerging company finance. And I observed among my students is that besides the anxiety finding a job, it's dealing with the community service. And I think the whole panel talk about really about sharing, building each other up. In addition to empower yourself, it's the community, that being a mother, being a nurturing a human being. So how do you encourage the young people to find that being a teamwork, being a community is to build, be a family unit, be a corporation, be a society member of contributing? So that's the questions I would like to.
Thank you very much. I'm going to assign the questions to each of the panelists. So the first question about work advice, Lulu, I'm going to have you take that on. Fresh graduate, class of 2018, works in tech, understands it's a very heated market out there, but it's also a competitive one as well. What kind of advice do you have for her?
Actually, the advice I would give to her would be related to all the other questions here, because I think one question was, how do you find your women's power? How do we find our human power? That's what we need to look at, because that is how we're going to beat the robots. Because they can do all kinds of things. They can take mega data, they can massage it left and right, and they'll come out with all kinds of solutions, but there are always going to be things that we as human beings will be able to come up with. And a lot of it will come up through our sense of connectedness with each other, our sense of shared humanity, which the bots will not be able to get they'll eventually get it, but we'll keep one step ahead of them. But always look to see how you can connect with people you work with, look at problems, and whenever you look for a solution to the problem, try to go back to that connectedness, that humanity that is going to be one step ahead of the bots.
Wonderful. Next question, I'm going to assign it to Paula. Please correct me if I got this wrong. You were talking about, in general terms, in an era of so much social media noise, how do you find yourself? How do you define yourself? Was that the core of your question, Miss? Yes? How do you find your internal voice, Paula?
It's a really great question. Are you you're a sophomore in high school? No, you're... Okay, now I was going to say come to Wellesley, but right, you'll find your inner voice. It is what we specialize in. But in all seriousness, I do think this is a major problem in our society, and it is about we're going to get back to the human connectedness and to move away from the models and the dogma that we are seeing on social media. And I do think that we must move away from it, because it is the way that we will find our ability to connect with the real world, whether it be through individuals, whether it be with the reality of what's happening in our world, which always isn't good, but it will not be seen through a filtered lens. We have to stop filtering everything through the lens of social media. And I think through that, and through that journey, we are much more likely to not only understand the world better, but through that really find out who we are in connection with that world.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you. The third question for Jinqing, aspiring art history major, sophomore in high school. Full disclosure, she's my daughter. I wasn't.
Come to Wellesley.
I wasn't expecting her. She's not a plant. I wasn't expecting her to be part of the audience Q&A portion, but yeah, she just went for it. So yeah, this is Arabella, and this is the question she has for you.
Yeah, I think in today's AI world, I mean, we used to say knowledge is power, but I think now we should say creativity is power. Because knowledge can be, instantly obtained anywhere on DeepSeek or, all these AI tools. But creativity is really what as a human's topest quality. I mean, if you look at Kristie's, the best creativity represented by the masters. You're talking about Van Gogh, you're talking about Monet, right? The Chinese ceramics. We have Paula, who is our, Kristie's top mind in the Chinese antiquity department. And those are beauty that belong to the mankind. So that's really the creativity at that time that become timeless. So I would say, whatever you choose as a major, it's that kind of quality, that creativity that you should strive for. Whether it's writing, whether it's painting, whether it's out there doing things. But as Kering says, we are a company that empower imagination. So I think that's the creativity and imagination is really the human power that differentiate from the robots.
Creativity is a human power. I love that. And Stephanie, let's have you take on the community service question, which came from the educator at Chinese University, Hong Kong. I believe it was something about how do you cultivate a sense of community service among students, Gen Z. How would you answer that, Stephanie?
Actually, I mean, I'm obviously maybe a bit biased, but in my experience working with a lot of these undergraduate students in Hong Kong, a lot of them have a really strong passion to serve, to want to do something for society. And I think they really see their identity in that. And so I've actually been very inspired myself to do more because of their passion and creativity. And I think it's great to have programs in school where they can have that exposure, because I think in this very fractured world, we need leaders that have a heart to serve and that seek to listen to understand. And I think through community service, it really builds the empathy and the connection that's been discussed today.
Thank you for those fabulous questions, incredible responses, and also let's give a round of applause for this inspired conversation by these 4 amazing women. That was really, really fantastic, right? An absolute honor to meet and to discuss and talk with all of you today. Thank you, and everyone have a wonderful day. Take care.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nellie Fung, and I think among the Wellesley alumni here, I'm the most senior in age. But I'd like to, I hope you've all enjoyed the lunch and the most thought-provoking dialogue as much as I have. I've been to many of these panels and talks and discussions, but I must say, I think today has been one of the most inspiring, uplifting, and positive discussions and panels and presentations that I've heard in a very, very long time. It's something that is so important for us today. So I'd like to very much thank, on behalf of the Hong Kong Wellesley College Alumni Club, it is my pleasure and honor to thank the Asia Society for co-sponsoring and co-organizing today's event and on this discussion on leadership, focusing in particularly on the leadership of women, which is so important today in our many aspects of life. I always like to quote and think of that Chinese saying that women hold up half the sky. I went to a panel last week during to celebrate the Women's Week, and one of the ladies at the panels in the audience said, "It's not half the sky. We hold up 3/4 of the sky." So thank you very much, President Johnson, for your vision, your inspiring talk about academic rigorousness, leadership, and the possibilities for women. Thank you to all our panelists, to Lulu, to Jinqing, and Stephanie, for all of your views on the different aspects of your professions and your lives. Wonderful insights and very inspiring. And finally, thank you, Kristie, who I've seen on CNN, and it's my great pleasure to see you in person, for moderating this panel so wonderfully and with such special insights also. And I'd just like to say that I'm coming away from this with the realization of the importance of empathy, collaboration, and unity among women, and to remember that when you educate a woman, you educate a generation. So thank you very much.